on the Hi, welcome to this Tuesday night, September 20th. We're going to do some more shares tonight. Hopefully we'll have some, well, we usually always have some fails or partial fails and some success stories. So let's start out with the little ray of light. Russell. Oh, man!
I missed out on Lampapalooza, so. Hello, I am Russell Riley, and I did some modifications. If I can pick it up here, to this old telephone. This is a 1946 model telephone, rotary style, for people who probably don't even know how this would work, but this was how your telephone worked back in the day. And I turned it into an office assistant. So, hey Google, what time is it?
7:04 p.m.
Hey Google, what's the weather today? Well, hey Google, what's the weather?
Right now in Knoxville, it's 84 degrees and sunny. Tonight, the forecast is for a high of 84 and a low of 65 and clear.
So I like old-looking things. I have, as my friends will tell you, I have old pinball machines, jukeboxes, typewriters, things like that. And when I came across this phone, I thought it was the perfect thing to have on my desk. This direction. And so you can see in the background there, I have my Lego typewriter. But I took the phone apart and basically took all the guts out of it. You can see the old ringer. This was an old capacitor over here. What's that? Zoom in on the projector. Okay, she said the plus button. Tight. There we go. All right. So basically, for the assistant, I chose the Google Nest. It was the Amazon Dot, the Alexa Dot would probably also fit in there just fine. But you do have to take all the guts out of it to make it fit just flush and program it before you put it in. And then you can see once it's flipped over, you definitely need to make sure you put the speaker in the right direction. Putting the speaker down muffled it way too much. It already is muffled enough with the top on it. And there it is, of course, just sitting on my desk. But that is my phone and how it works and how I put it together. Yes, sir?
Where did you find that phone?
It was going to be thrown away. Someone was cleaning out a house, and it was a house find. And my wife actually turned me on to it and asked me if I wanted it. And I said, of course. So, and if anyone else comes across any more like this, I would be glad to have them if you don't turn them into assistants for yourself.
Just ask for Russell.
Yeah, just ask for Russell. That's right. It took me all of probably 2 hours once I had the components, because it was just really stripping the phone and slipping the dot inside. So, anything else? Nope.
Does the rotary part still work?
Oh yeah. The rotary has a wonderful sound. Yep. For those of us that remember that, and I'm sure there's people that don't. But thank you.
That was great. It's sorry about that. I'll try and keep you two separated. All right, let's try Todd with some D&D minis.
Hi, everybody. I'm Todd. Hi, Todd. So on Thursday nights, some of you may or may not know this, but on Thursday nights we have started a D&D campaign. I have several people, like 9 of us on a really good night that show up and we play D&D. I am the Dungeon Master, and I am leading them down the path, the hero's journey, to destruction, hopefully. I am writing the whole campaign myself, so it's everything that's going on inside here. I just channel it all out through my D&D sessions on Thursdays. It's been a lot of fun. Brian, he's in it. Russell's in it. I don't think anybody else from the group is here tonight, but we all have a great time. And for our game, I use minis and maps because theater of the mind is really cool, but sometimes you actually need to know where you're at. So I have these minis that I have actually painted. All of these guys. Do I get to zoom out? Oh, I'm not putting them in the camera view. There we go. Now we'll zoom back in. Yeah. There we go. So that's one of my little sorceress ladies. And you can see that sometimes I do them, make it to where I can see. I change them up a little bit and I put different, features on them, like the black crown versus the silver crown. These guys, the little kobolds here. This one I actually did specific for one of my other campaigns. I gave him a little scar over his eye, so his name is Meepo. I always know that's Meepo. But this one I did the other night. This one took me 3 hours. Start to finish, I sat down and I painted him all in 3 hours. Worth of very, very, very tiny little brush strokes and work. But he turned out really good. I'm really happy with this dude. So anyway, and this is what they look like when I start with them. They're all just gray. You can't see that. They're just plain gray.
Are you 3D printing those, or are you?
I got these from Amazon, but you can, yes, and I would love to learn how to do that. I don't have any experience with 3D printers yet, but here's another random.
That's why you joined Makers.
That's why I joined Makers. So little skeleton dude I painted, skeleton archer. So anyway, cool. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Can I see the base of the archer again? Is that? Oh, okay.
Painted.
That's just a texture. I was curious if it was like moss or something.
Right. Yeah. No. I painted it really good. I tried to. I painted it really good to look like he was standing on green grass with little yellow flowers in the green grass. So I sprinkled little bits of yellow in there to make it more authentic. And like this big dude I painted the other day with 3 hours, his looks like he's standing on rocks. So turned out pretty good, I thought. Anyway, I just wanted to share.
What kind of material are the figures made out of, and what kind of paint do you use?
They're little plastic figures, and it's just little acrylic paints. Acrylic paint. So, like my daughter likes to paint rocks. You know how you do do they do that here? 901. I had this thing in Memphis called 901 Rocks, and you paint a rock and then hide it somewhere, and then somebody comes and finds it and puts it on the website. Do y'all do that around here? You should. It's cool. Anyway, my daughter does that, and so sometimes I steal her paints, and I'm like, hey, I need red for this, and she'll loan me her red. So, anyway, cool.
I'm envious of the eyesight that is able to paint something that small. Oh, I feel better now.
Glass or I would not be able to see these because these are actually really
Yes.
trifocals. So, I tried. I failed.
Yeah, I'd have to have as my grandson calls them, my Magoo glasses. You might know them as Julier's glasses. Yeah. Well, let's go from one kind of combat, D&D, to another. Let's go with Tim for wood combat.
Hello, Tim. We've done Kill Switch around here a couple of times, and we've actually had a person who competed with a wood robot, I think, twice? Yeah. But I found this little guy on Amazon for $25. And it actually even came with a printed circuit board for its controller. And it's a little bit delayed on its movements. And it does actually have the weapon that spins on it. So the company that makes these, they're around 25, and they've got a whole bunch of different ones. They've got horizontal, vertical spinners. They've got a shell spinner. I mean, every single one of these things is like this. They even have mock-up construction equipment, you know, because these are things you're supposed to build with your kid. Of course, you know, I just like to play with combat robots, so I bought it for myself. But the kit came in a bunch of little pieces like this, and that's literally everything electronic in it. It's just got a couple of simple motors. It runs on 3 AA batteries. The weapon motor is the little silver one right there, and it's got a little pulley that the weapon motor mounts to right there, and that's literally it. And then everything else is just laser cut sheets of wood and very simple instructions which don't tell you a thing. And then you just assemble it all together. It's got one sheet that's just for the controller, and it drives very functionally, but it does make me think, well, you know, what can you do to make it a little bit more fun? So you could put like real RC controls in it, and you could stick, instead of 3 AA's, you could put a 2S or 3S battery in it. You could replace this by making a new one on the laser cutter, because there is all kinds of room in here that you could make this bar much, much thicker. So you could pack it full of, metal nuts and stuff like that to increase its weight. And that would also give you a bigger motor over here to make it spin faster. So you could actually turn this into something that, you know, at least brings it up to single curse word level of danger. So, and then, you know, you and your friends could have fun with it. Pick up a couple more of them, upgrade those similarly, and you know, I think that this would be something kind of fun, because, you know, the wheels, they basically would just come right off. So you'd be able to knock the other people's wheels off, and whoever's disabled first loses. The battery compartment is actually just this wonderful little slide piece, so it comes off so you can access the batteries. And the battery on the controller is similarly easy to access. This piece slides forward, and there's your batteries. So it's just a really, you know, functionally designed toy for $25. You could do anything you want with this. I'd probably recommend making it a lot bigger if you're going to actually make it into a kill switch bot, because that's kind of a short bar for a weapon. But yeah, you could have a lot of fun with it. Usually you want your blade to come out the same width as your wheels, because that means anybody that's coming at you from the front has to hit the blade to get to your wheels. As it is right now, you've got all kinds of room that you could come into these things from the side and get them. If you ever watch BattleBots, this is based a lot on Tombstone, and Ray Billings actually says that all the time, that his blade is as wide as his wheels, so that as long as he's squared off at you, you can't hurt him other than to come right into his blade. So, but yeah, it's a fun little toy to have. So, yes. Everything was $25.
Are y'all discussing having that as a category in the next kill switch?
I think we could do this sort of a thing outside of a big event, and just, you know, have these kinds of things set up that we could play once a month if we wanted to. I mean, we could build these things out of cardboard, and if they get thrashed, you lose. You know, use a wooden blade, everything else is cardboard. When you fall apart, you're out. So, but yeah, there it is.
$25, huh? Amazon, huh? Well, before all of you have a chance to go out there to Amazon, let me remind you that if you do smile.amazon.com, pick Knox Makers as your donating charity, we get itty bit of money for every purchase you make. All the products are the same, it's just you're going through there. And with the holiday seasons coming, whether you're getting skeletons or robots, it all adds up. All right, next up, we have Anthony with a super desk.
That's me. All right. Hello, everyone. obviously. Hi. Okay, so this is the first time I've done any sort of public speaking or anything like that in front of people, so please forgive me. What I have is, honestly, it doesn't matter. It's fun. So the idea here was I wanted to make, have, oh goodness, I wanted to have, let's just call it what it is, a wiring harness for my computer. I wanted to keep these cords out of the way, that they're everywhere, and I don't even know how to use this. This is great. I should have prepared. There it is. Okay, so here, can we see? All right, let's take that out for a moment. Okay, so the idea here is I just wanted to get the cords out of the way. And so what I've done is I've combined all of the cords that go from my monitor, from my speakers, you name it, doesn't matter. It's all bundled into one cord now. And we have plugs and connectors going in and out of it as they go. Well, should have prepared for this a little more. But I wish, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. The idea here is, it's all in my head, and I'm trying to get it out into reality. What we have here is a not so great presentation, but yes.
How are the cords being?
Thank you.
How are the cords being bundled up?
Thank you. They are just some easy old Velcro cord ties. That's it. Nothing too crazy. But what it does, I wonder, I don't think we can get there because, well, I should have had a bigger screen. Doesn't matter. Let's see if we can make it a little bit brighter. Negative. All right. So the point is you can see in the background here, they are somewhat bundled. It's not a complete mess. And I take great pride in my cord wrangling skills. This is a work in progress. It will look better, and I will have more to show you later. But as it stands, it is what it is. What I'm most excited about this is, well, the reason why it's here at all is because I do have a lot of junk on the desk as well. But as you can see, I don't know if you can see at all. The point is, I have all these cords attached to a retracting, a spring balancer that pulls the cords to the wall so that, well, they don't rip everything off the desk when I adjust the monitor. Yeah, this is exciting. This is...
Is that something you made or something you purchased?
So I made it. There were no instructions or anything like that. I just gathered up all the cords that were under my desk and said, I hate how awful this looks. Let's do something about it. And, well, I did. But yes, the idea is I don't have that much space to work with in my room, and I don't have space to put things while I'm working on this. And so I had to reuse the cords, or reuse the holes that were in the wall from the mount that was there before. And then while I was doing it, I had to also take vacuum up the drywall particles as I went. And it's exciting. I'm starting to get into this, including the cleanup with with my project now. And so I don't have a whole bunch of stuff just around. Like I said, this is going to get better. I'm going to have more to show you guys. Hopefully, the goal is to not have any cords at all except for a huge cord that's attached to the wall. I don't know. I was told in design, or in graphic design, that if I can't hide it, than make it a feature. And that's what I'm doing here. I've got a whole bunch of cords that I can't do anything with. And so now I'm doing something with it. Now I just need a nice little LED strip to go inside of the bundle. That way it makes it look like, yeah, makes it look like there's power going from the computer to the monitor. But anyway, that's what it is. I've got more, this is gonna be better. It's an ongoing thing. You guys are gonna be impressed, I promise. It's guaranteed to be exciting. But I appreciate your time up here. This is great. Thanks for listening to me, guys. This is just what I'm working on live now at home as soon as we're done here. But yeah, I wish I had, but that's it. That's it, guys. Yeah! Thank you.
I'll definitely be watching the progress, Anthony, because I've got the mouse cord going underneath the coffee cup and the keyboard under the oatmeal bowl, and yeah, I could use some help there at home. All right, let's go for something completely different. Let's go for some fangs and tusks with Joe.
And Arduinos, you looked up the Arduinos.
Oh, and hook them up to Arduinos?
Okay, so this Tuesday night adult kindergarten that I've been trying to get running, we're finishing up the masks. We had a Monday session for the board members who couldn't come on Tuesday because they're out there herding cats. So that would be the last one. And this is an example of a mask that I made, using the process we're learning. And it's fitted to the face. My face is a little asymmetrical, so if you want a fitted mask, the process we use will make it fit. Now, next Tuesday, we're going to have it's in the events calendar, and I think I'm calling it Fangs, Tusks, Horns, and Claws, made out of moldable plastic. There's this guy, if you remember this guy? Well, I handed this out last time, but even though it was in a bag, it's kind of yuck, so I'm not going to hand it out. But it's just a one-day class. You'll be learning how to use moldable plastic, and you can really come in and make anything you want to. I'm just going to show some techniques that I've learned, and especially on how to color these things. These are a little too white. I'd like to yellow them down a little bit. And then following that, it hadn't been announced yet, we're going to make Viking helmets with horns, and that's going to take a couple of weeks too, out there on Tuesdays. And in addition to all that, in October, we're starting an Arduino class. And if you know nothing about electronics and computing, and you want to learn a little bit about that, this is a great introduction. Actually, it's kind of braggy, isn't it? No, it is. It's a great introduction. The Arduino is a great system. It's an ecosystem for. It was designed for artists, so really anybody can get into this, and you can add sensing and control to your projects. I've got a book out, 8 chapters available on the internet. Look at arduinoclass.com, arduinoclass.com. There's a poster out on the table. The Arduino 101 is out. It's 8 chapters. The class will be taught, you'll buy the kit, and you'll pay for the first 3 classes. And if it isn't suitable, you're not interested, you can come to or not the next 5 classes in a row. Ray has Crampton, our new czar for electronics, is going to be working with me on it. And the last time we taught this, it was with Isaac, and we had 23 people show up. So I'm not really expecting that now, but I'm hoping. If you have any questions, ask me or Ray, and I'll be out there finishing up masks. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
So from masks to electronics, wow. Let's just keep on going with the rest of the shop and bring up Kevin with a hitch guide. I'm assuming that's from the Danger Bay.
two separate things I'm going to talk about tonight. The first one is I've showed before where I'm redoing that old lathe, and the lathe has no sort of guide or anything around it, so if you're doing chips, they're just going to fly everywhere when you're working on the lathe. So my first thought is that I was going to get a piece of sheet metal and kind of fold it into like a clamshell and then kind of bring it underneath the thing and attach it. And as a part of trying to figure out how that would work, I decided I would do it with cardboard. And if I could get this, I don't know how to scroll it. There we go. So I had this thing with just cardboard like that and underneath, and then coming around, that's the way it was going to look on the back. But I couldn't really find any good mounting points, and it was really difficult to figure out how I was going to get everything folded just right. I don't know if you can tell it, that color's not right, but this right here is the cardboard. So then I decided that instead of trying to fit it all, getting a piece of metal and fitting, I would make a frame and then try to put the sheet metal onto the frame. So let me find that. So I went down to the scrapyard, and our local scrapyard, and people have brought stuff, and they had these big pallets of these 6-foot 1x1 square-inch tubes, and a lot of them looked really rusty, but I found that in the middle of those there was some that didn't have very much rust on them. So I got these tubes. Let's see, cancel that. And I don't know if you can see that there's a frame there, so that's me starting to build up a frame. And so I had to 3D print some connectors to put it together like a Connects setup. I did decide I had to drill one hole onto my headstock there. That's the cast iron powder coming out. And then I made this little piece to go on it. And that will be just the right angle to mount the metal on. And let's see. I then had to mount up underneath there, and I had to kind of design each of these little pieces to put that on. So that's going to be a rail and come down. And then this is the final after I have the pieces on. So now I'm going to be able to come along and put sheet metal on the outside of that. So I've got that whole frame built up. And then I'm going to have some more verticals in between those to put the sheet metal onto. So that's what I've been working on this last week. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is a hitch guide, which is a completely separate thing. I have a trailer, but I'm really bad at backing it up, and so I just have to have someone to come out there, and then sometimes they're not always there. And I thought, so I got these things here, and I'm going to mount one of them on the trailer and one of them on my hitch, and I'm going to try to drive until one knocks the other off. So I first of all went to Lowe's, and I got a little like 1 inch by I think 1 inch by 1/2, and I made this device here, which is like that, and it has a slot for the magnet to go in, and then this little part will go in there and close it up, and it jams in there to hold the magnet. But I got that all made, and it was a regular magnet, and it wasn't strong enough to hold onto the hitch. It was just falling off, especially with these long arm to put torque on it. So then I got some neodymium magnets and remade it. It's smaller, and again there's where the magnet goes in, and then the drawer, and I tried it and it works. So here is the one of them sitting on the hitch like that, and that way I can look out my back window and see it, and that's zoomed in on the base. And then here's what it'll look like on the trailer. And that's kind of on the base. So I haven't tried it yet, but I think it'll work. So any questions?
On your chicken
Yeah,
I would suggest you put the sheet metal on the inside of that frame rather than the outside. Make it a lot easier to clean it up.
yeah, I was thinking about if those things are, what I think I may do, because right under the bed, I actually want it to be at an angle, and those ribs are flat. So I'm thinking I may actually have some stepped risers on those things there, and then put the metal on the inside, setting on those horizontal risers, and then just to make it look nicer, I may have another layer on the outside to enclose it. But I agree with you, that'll be good. On the back side, I don't know if I'm gonna do the 2 layers or not. I haven't figured that part out yet. Thank you.
That's a great way to learn how to back up to something. So I take it you don't have a backup camera? Yeah, no, okay.
It's an old car.
All right, well, oldies but goodies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there anybody else that didn't get signed up? Yeah, come on up.
Hey y'all, I'm Narita. Let me just get a couple things out here. Okay, so a few weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, I was here and we were sorting through some fabric and other stuff in the fiber arts area, and there's this beautiful fabric in there. It said it was 1988, Mary Mary, and it just has like some really nice sheen. And besides a few like smaller scraps that got thrown away, this was all that was left of that fabric. I was loaned this really awesome pattern, and the problem is that in vintage sizes, a size 14 is really about this big. And so I wanted to use
a modern size 8.
well, and I typically wear 8 to 10, so it was still a little bit small. So since it was a borrowed pattern, I ended up doing some custom sizing. I cut out the largest size of the pattern and then gave myself some extra room on the muslin. That way I could like fit it to myself and make the darts and kind of adjust it. But this dress was really cool. It's a 3-piece pattern, except if you need to make your own bias tape, it is a nightmare. So I got this dress here. Oops, sorry. The other fabric I chose to go with it was this really shiny one, and this other pink fabric was just a random square. It was about a 4x4 square that was in the back over there. And I'll come to this side. So what's really awesome with this is that the pattern calls for using snaps, but there are different variations of it. And the original pattern of it, Butterick shut down whole sewing machine or pattern factories to only make this pattern when it first came out. So then having the reproduction of it is really interesting. So it's an apron style dress. So it's 3 main pieces. There's the front bodice part, and then the back has a top and then a skirt. And so the front piece, I made it just so it would tie. That way it would kind of give me a little bit of extra room for that size discrepancy. And then the back part just wraps around and ties in the front, where you could add snaps or buttons or whatever. So besides this shiny front piece, the rest of it was either got from the fiber arts area, leftover fabric, and then a pattern from another maker, pattern was a 1952 pattern, and it was just so popular. They touted it as a dress that you could start after breakfast time and walk away in the evening or afternoon for like a fancy party or whatever. So it's like a walk and go dress. So that because it was so simple and pretty figure flattering, it was very popular. So they did do the reproduction of it. I saw another.
You know what happened to your machine?
No,
Bring it in.
it's just it's been neglected is mostly what it is.
So did you track how long it took you?
It was over the course of 2 days, and it was probably making the muslin part and cutting out the pattern and the fabric was probably about 3 or 4 hours. And then sewing everything, I went to my mother-in-law's house at 5 p.m. on Monday 2 weeks ago, and I was leaving there at 11, and I took it with me on Tuesday when I left for my trip and wore it that weekend. So there's some things that aren't finished, some things that I didn't quite do right, like with the turning of the bias edge. I didn't finish the hem. She was like, take your scissors, snip the ends if you see any loose things. It's gonna be dark. Nobody's gonna care. So it's like, all right. So
It is gorgeous.
thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hello. My name is Logan King, and over the past few months, but increasingly as a hobby project, the last few weeks, I've been working on something called CodeViz, which is a visualizer for source code that renders all human-readable text into one PNG image, and so you can kind of visualize the size of a GitHub repository or a book if it's a text file, or anything UTF-8 compatible, and it also adds syntactic highlighting, so you can kind of see colors and the syntax of it all. So here's one example. Let's see. Where is my increase here? There we go. Yeah. So this is an example of an image outputted by CodeViz. It's just one frame. I do have another project I'll show in a moment that actually renders an image for every commit in a GitHub repository and then turns it into a movie, so you can kind of see how your code evolves over time. But this is CodeViz. So what you see here is text. It's not actually readable right now. Each character of text is translated into 1 pixel wide, 2 pixels high in this image. And so we're not rendering it at the resolution where you can read the text. That's maybe a feature request for the future. But you can see the structure of the code and vaguely how big it is. Sorry, that's a cat. And yeah, I like cats. But and so you can kind of visualize the size of things and get more perspective on how much work went into a repository. And yeah, it's kind of been I had a friend or a few people ask me before, they weren't really convinced that a repository was open source, and they told me, like, show me the code. And so I kind of like pulled up GitHub, and I can show them 50 lines at a time, but it was hard to tell them like exactly, how much was really done on it. And so this is a project that's been interesting to me to kind of show people what can be done. And then as an example of a video, here is a result from CodeMove. And this is showing one frame, I think it's at 15 FPS, of a GitHub repository, and it kind of renders the code over time and shows how it changes. It's a little jittery right now. It's just using kind of the base image input code, and I haven't optimized it for video yet. It was more for just displaying one image, but this is the first results of turning that into a movie. So kind of shows you things changing over time, but sure. Questions?
So would you see like this could be like a site you could go to and then put in the name of a GitHub repository and it would output the visualization?
Yeah, so it's already actually open sourced, github.com/sloganking/codeviz. Or if you have Rust and the Rust programming language installed, you can type in cargo install codeviz, and it will go ahead and install a command line interface that you can use to render images text images already.
So the code that we're looking at there, what program is that actually?
So this is Prodash. Prodash is I don't know what exactly to call it, a command line progress indicator. So as a program runs, it'll give you kind of a bar of text in the command line that'll show you like a progress over time and how complete things are. Prodash is actually a library of CodeViz, so you can see how fast your image is being rendered. And one of the contributors who's been helping me with CodeViz when I made it public a few weeks ago was the author of Prodash, and so I decided to render their library for this as well.
The entire program from start to finish in one frame.
Yeah, so every frame is a different commit, and the beginning, when it's smaller, just kind of restarted, is kind of the beginning of his GitHub repository. I don't know if, they maybe it starts with a few thousand lines, so maybe they were working up before then. And then towards the end, you'll see more like white text to the left. That's when it kind of gets to the end and is rendering all it can. So, and then it resets in the CF.
So, is the overall objective of this project to kind of help visualize how much work is being put into the project?
How much? What again?
How much work is being put into developing some of these codes?
Yeah, so the overall objective is to visualize, how much work is going in or just how large a project is. I've already rendered, I don't have an image right now on the top of my head, but I've already rendered the Linux kernel, which is about 30 million lines of code, and it's an enormous image that you need a special image viewer to view. But, it's kind of impressive in a way, and you can kind of zoom in and almost get lost in the infinite labyrinth of text there, and it's kind of interesting.
Just to follow up on this, have you ever considered, instead of visualizing like this, but maybe something like with the Python language, how often a module gets called, and that could be like a scale of how big the kind of text is or representation?
Yeah. It's not something I've considered doing yet, but I'm open to new ideas in the future and different ways of visualizing. This, for instance, this method is good for renderizing a whole repository into one image. In fact, I have an optimization that lets it like interlaces a little darker and lighter the files so that you can see where the files begin and end. But obviously, it's a little jittery and a little hard to see which file's changing when. So maybe in the future, I could do something like one column per file, and that way it'd be easier to see the changes in GitHub, or add like when lines are added or removed, you could have a whole red or green section flash in the video. So, yeah. Are we good on time or more questions?
I think you could take a couple more.
Sure.
We haven't asked.
You haven't asked before?
Well, I was going to ask the size. Lincoln Scarlett answered that for me. My other question was going to be, like, have you had any insights? Like, are there certain types of project that, show different, like, profiles of activity? What meta insights?
Yeah.
Do you think,
It's been interesting to see some structures. So some projects you'll see, I don't know what it is. In the future, I could make this so you could click anywhere on the image and it could actually open the source file, which is kind of an interesting improvement in the future to make. But there are some interesting things you can see in repositories. For instance, you might see like a few column line, kind of looks like a repeating data structure, which is maybe JSON or something, storing kind of something in a list that you weren't, it makes it much easier to kind of see different structures in a repository. In fact, the top left of this is a little white and then red at the bottom. That's a README or a markdown file. It's how that kind of renders it. So, and then we get here and you see like more towards the end of that, more white to the left. So I think there might be tools or features to add in the future that might make it easier to better analyze things, but it already kind of gives you an overview of vaguely, how much is in the project or what's structured where. So, but thanks. One last question.
So you're starting at the top and then you go down and you're just doing vertical stripes. And really it's one big long line of code. So just something whimsical, like what if you had like Bezier curves, you just have it be loops and you have like artistic and flowing all over the screen.
So you can do whatever you want. In fact, if you want to go ahead and make your own program to do that, that would be interesting. Currently, CodeViz, you give a target aspect ratio, and then it will render to that the best that it can. So for instance, you might see the sides might come in a little bit every now and then, and that's kind of, it's trying to get the best aspect ratio while also preserving, it has to fill the last column, which makes it change a little bit. But one option you could do if anyone in the future or I wanted to do that is you could tell it to have an infinitely vertical aspect ratio. It would render it all to one column, and then you could do your own image processing and do whatever you want with that. Make it do curves or flips or whatever else. So, let's see.
Or loopy loops.
Sure. Awesome. Or loopy loops. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, if you have any other questions, I'm sure that Logan will be sure to answer them outside later. So give him a shout. Anybody else? Okay.
So Scott already shared on this a little bit, so I will make it quick, but I do have a bit more that was not shared previously. Yeah. Okay, so I took the ACNC class recently, and I just had a small little video that I could show. They're teaching the class again in October every Saturday, although they may be filled up on that at this point, but they'll have more opportunities for it, and I would recommend it. What I was going to show is just a quick 3 operations, so you can see what it looks like in an industrial CNC setting, where they're going to make 3 holes. 2 of them are tapped and 1 of them is precision. And so what we have here so that's spot drilling and chamfering the top edge. And then you're doing a deep pecking cycle on the drill where it tries to break the chips, so it's going down a little bit and then pulling up. Those are the tapping cycles, so the motions have to be synchronized as it spins and moves in Z, or it would break the tap immediately. This is a center drill operation, so it uses an approximate drill size, but then it'll ream to the final dimension because that gives you a more round and perfectly cylindrical hole. So it does your drill operation and then switches to the reamer. Actually, that's a chamfer. It likes to chamfer the top edge before you send a reamer into it. Yeah. There you go. So anyway, that was just 3 operations basically. And if you try and do that classically, it ends up taking, you know, an hour to make 3 holes, which is just the classic thing. But in a CNC that's set up, it's in this case about 2 minutes or so. And so what we were actually doing was building these little lamps, obviously. So we have, these are these little pneumatic pistons. And so what you were looking at in that video was actually making that hole right there, and that hole there, and the hole that the bushing sits in. So it was just, it faced the top, and then it did those other features. And so it's like all of that just for like 3 features. And I've got the little, I'd have to go back to, okay, so this is, if I go, and so that's what we built. So it's just a simple little pneumatic piston. It's got a 3D printed part, and then a bunch of aluminum parts with adaptive clearing to it, an engraving operation on it. So drilling, tapping, and then it also has a steel part that takes a lot longer to do. So would highly recommend that course if you're interested in CNC, and at least for the next few times they teach it, it's free. They even give you lunch. So, yeah.
How many months until we get a CNC here?
What's the lead time on that right now?
The Avid is going to take 14 weeks to get the base, and we still have to assemble it with electronics in.
Right. So, but I will say the Avid's not going to have like flood cooling, so it's not going to be great for making like. Yeah. Right. Right. It's the Avid's not going to be great for making steel parts, but it could do in principle pieces like this. The aluminum pieces totally can do it on a router. So.
Was that an actual tap that was used for the threads?
They used a form tap, which is just a bit different than the kinds of taps that I'm used to using. But in principle, you can use just a normal tap. In principle, you can use a single point cutter if you wanted to, or you can use just a normal tap. And the thing to use is you have to use a tapping cycle on it. So the spindle motion has to be synchronized to the Z motion, and you cannot do that on the Avid. But anyway. All right. Thanks.
I am impressed. I don't think I saw a single fail tonight. Did any of you catch one? I think we have some great makers in here. Yeah, this is great. So just a few announcements. Classes. Let's see, there's a MIG, TIG, laser, and metal flower class. Oh wait, they're all sold out, sorry. Contact your czar to see if they will put up another one so you can get your tickets. There are tickets available for the Brazing 201 class. That looks like it's this Saturday, as well as schematics to breadboards. The ever gripping board meeting is Sunday. You don't want to miss that one. New members onboarding next Tuesday. Cutting torch on 10/9. That's it for classes. We're all volunteers. If you think you can do a class or know something you want to share and teach a class, we'd love to have that. We'd also like volunteers to maybe take out the trash and change the air filter. It's both sides. Okay, there we go. 2 volunteers. Got it. And with that, I'm done. So let's go out and make some stuff. Thank you for joining.